All right, here we go. Mellow Thursday night music. See if you know who this is anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Steven, you probably wouldn't know who this is. It's Selena. She was so diverse with her music. I mean, she played like mariachi, Tejano, ranchero, cumbia, and she crossed.
There's a good reason why she's so popular.
Yeah. Actually, that's right. So anyway, we are live. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Stephen, Mama Ruth, Jenny, Barb, and the rest of the gang. We want to welcome you to our last Thursday night special. Last 2 weeks ago, I believe, we had a special where we talked about the assault weapons in the gun violence epidemic in America. We had almost 4,000, it's climbing now, 4,100 views on that one. Tonight. Yeah, that's right. And it was a good conversation that we had. We had a gentleman from New York that was in with us as well. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 and the deaths that have occurred around the country. And the reason we wanted to talk about this is because a lot of states, a lot of municipalities and governments and stuff are opening up here in North Carolina. We have released the mask mandate. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask outside or indoors, and the CDC has released theirs. I think the only requirement now is flying or traveling. Is that right? Wearing masks, if I'm not mistaken. I still see people wearing masks. I probably even still, it's a habit now. I know we talked about this yesterday on our regular show, and during cold and flu season, I'm sure I'll probably wear a mask when I go out. Anyway, we'll talk about that. But so today's topic is 600,000 social murder deaths in a pro-life America. It's kind of a loaded title, and we'll talk about what that means. But before we do, let's go around the small Brady Bunch screen today and introduce yourself and any imaginary button that you have. I guess you go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Stephen D. Fiore. I'm the recording secretary of the Libertarian Party of Mecklenburg County. And because it's Thursday, I am dressed casual. And because we're talking about a heavy subject, I want to wear something fun. So I got my Stay Puft Marshmallow shirt on because, Stay Puft Marshmallow, man, it could never, ever hurt anybody. So if you're, standing before Gozer and it says choose, think of the Stay Puft Marshmallow, man, because it's just fun. And if nothing else, when the Ghostbusters team comes in, you get marshmallow fluff everywhere, and it's super fun.
Cyndi, introduce yourself.
Go right ahead.
Cyndi, I'm in Texas. I still stand, my little button still says Black Lives Matter. And with the last, yes, Black Lives Matter. But the last few days, I've really noticed a lot of focus on the abortion issues. And I think our governor here just switch something up I read earlier, and I think I'm going to start standing up for women's rights and what I believe in, and what we should do with our bodies. It's a private matter and shouldn't belong to some governor out there who doesn't even know how to keep our electricity on. But anyway, and that's it for me tonight on him. I don't think I should say too much more until we start talking about the COVID deaths.
Yeah, I've been reading about your, we talk about this on Wednesday's show. For those of us who are looking at what's going on in Texas outside, y'all got some crazy things going on.
It's just, it's like 20 steps backwards, and I can't wrap my mind around understanding that.
Well, granted, we're only going to hear like the negative stuff. We don't hear about the great stuff in Texas, like, I guess, I don't know what's great. We haven't
had any COVID deaths in a few days, so that's great.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. So actually, that's what we want to talk about today. And as we always do on Coffee and Dulce, if you're drinking something, salute to your neighbors. I'm drinking tea. And just in case you know, tea is naturally unsweet. So when people say, are you drinking? That's what I got in my tea. So just... I didn't want people to know.
Island tea?
Yeah, that's right. Long Island iced tea. Stephen and I were having this conversation before we kind of went live, and the reason I wanted to use the term social media deaths is because I came across an article. We're about to reach, I think it's 600,000 deaths here in the United States due to COVID-related. I believe that's, not sure how they word that properly. There's one report that says it's been undercounted. It's probably closer to 900,000. But I guess we'll never know until this is all, people are able to, universities and so forth, look at it. But there was an article in a British medical journal in February of this year that was entitled, and I was talking about this to Stephen before, it was entitled, "Are COVID deaths the result of social murder?" And the term social murder, I believe, and Stephen, maybe you can educate us because you seem to know, it was coined in 1845 by Frederick Engels. I believe he's from Britain. And the term, I believe, is used when someone has an unexpected or early death, unnatural death, that it's caused by political, I think that's, if I'm reading that right. Is that right, Stephen? Is that
like social?
Yeah. So it's when people or groups or individuals die, before they would normally, due to either social engineering or something policymakers have done. Yeah. So, like, I'll give you an example. The Holodomor was a social murder of about, 20 million Ukrainians, because the state decided that the people in Ukraine didn't deserve food. So it's when you have a government that says, we're going to put in a series of, either barriers or institutional policies, and that leads to the death of individuals disproportionately when maybe they wouldn't have died if, other policies were taken.
okay?
Is that kind of like the pay wage now?
Yeah, I guess you could identify a lot of things as social murder now, but the article was really highlighting
Depends on how you want to define it.
Yeah. I mean, the article was really defining 5 countries specifically, because five countries around the world are responsible for, I believe it's, I'm trying to scan through the article real quickly. Half the deaths in the world are attributed to just 5 countries: the UK, USA, America, Brazil, Mexico, and India. And so they were examining the leaders of those countries during the global pandemic and why those countries had such a large, responsible for half the deaths in the world when they don't represent half the population, and other countries were able to have less deaths. And so they believe it was just, I'm paraphrasing this, but I think the gist of it was that COVID-19 in those countries and in our countries early on was just mismanaged. And because it was mismanaged, we had so many deaths in comparison to other countries. I know that's a conversation that we've had quite often, Stephen, on our show, talking about, restrictions and so forth. And I know that's a conversation we're probably always going to have until we kind of get this a little bit more under control. But, I can tell you that a lot of families obviously have been impacted by COVID-19. A lot of families have had deaths in their family. My family has had 3 deaths in our family. And so fortunately, we were able to stay safe and so forth. And those 2 of my uncles who lived in Texas passed away due to COVID. And one of my aunts who lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana, passed away due to COVID. And so, there are a lot of families who have been impacted. We've got a very good friend of ours whose family member also passed away as well. So, there's not really much that we can say to those families now, and especially as we are now getting vaccinated. And I guess, we just kind of want to talk about what we can do maybe moving forward, to help everyone and so forth. So, Stephen, I know you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and I know you haven't always agreed with some of the policies here in North Carolina, specifically, what has happened and so forth. What do you think that we can do moving forward? It seems like we're coming out of this. it feels like to me that we're kind of like on the way out. I don't know. Do y'all feel that way?
I mean, fingers crossed. Absolutely, we're on the way out. I mean, mass vaccinations are very valuable in mitigating the spread of this disease. More study needs to go into, the how SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19, how it functions, what tissues it functions, because it's brand new, right? So you hear this term, novel coronavirus, right? Novel in medical terminology means like brand spanking new. So this is something brand spanking new. We just don't know anything about it. So, a lot of study needs to go into it. And one of the things that needs to happen for us as a society to have the best result, in my opinion, is to be able to have broad conversations without fear of censorship. Because, maybe the narrative that we've been given is half right or, mostly right, but maybe there's a critical aspect that people maybe don't talk about. One of the conversations that was censored early on in social media was the possibility of an accidental lab leak. Now, people would say, "Oh, it's a weapon," blah blah blah. That's bull. That's absolute bull, right? That there's no way that that's the case. But let's say hypothetically that it was, an act people have been talking about accidental releases of viruses from medical, from research labs all the time, right? That's why there's so many procedures to protect against accidental releases. If you're from, Atlanta, Georgia, where the CDC is located and they do a lot of research, about this, right? There's, if you ever seen the movie Outbreak, right? It's a pretty cool movie from the 90s. They have these big labs and all these layers of protection. You wear these suits, right? So if something like that was being worked on, right, through something called function research, then it's okay, well, this is useful information because now we know a bit more about maybe what happened, how it works. We can cater our responses, whether it's vaccinations or isolation protocols or whatever. And maybe it is perfectly natural, in which case we need to know what situations arose, right, that allowed something like this to come up so that we can maybe, work on that as well. More information is needed. In order to get that information, we need to feel free to have conversations, even conversations that people may not politically like. Sure. And one of the unfortunate things is the response to COVID itself has become politicized. It's become like a right versus left, team red, team blue kind of thing. And listen, guys and gals, anyone who's watching, the virus doesn't care about your politics, right? It just doesn't. It sees cells and it says, I'm going to destroy that cell to make more of me. And then those individual virions make more of them. And before you know it, you're dying in a hospital. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. So the ability to have these conversations is necessary because human beings talk and we share ideas by talking. And, one of the best ways to talk is on social media, and through media, and media companies and social media companies have been censoring different aspects of this conversation rather than addressing criticisms on its merits. And that leads to, one group saying, oh, it's all a conspiracy and checking out, right? That's the whole anti-mask or anti-vax BS. Or one says, oh, it's this, it has to be this. Well, maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And now the procedures that we're doing are not good. Wearing masks outdoors. It's not a single instance of outdoor transmission, right? A study was released not too long ago about that. Well, that's good news, right? We need to know that, right? We need to know why that is, but we can't have that conversation. And so, this article that you mentioned talks about social murder. They broadly call out leaders that are on the conservative side of the political spectrum, and I think that's done on purpose, right? Because you could find the same examples of left-wing policy leaders that have had bad results too, but they're not called out. Again, this is an example of this conversation being politicized, which does us all a disservice. Because we need to, regardless of your politics, right? This virus doesn't care. But fortunately, the vaccine is coming online. Instances of transmission are going down. That's a good sign. We just need to keep an eye on this stuff and make sure to be careful about how we talk about it in the future and not, overly politicize something that really has dire consequences.
You made those are really good points, Stephen. And I'm curious from Cyndi, and because I guess maybe I should have started off by asking this question. Do y'all think in where you live that it was handled properly in the beginning? I know we're being Monday morning quarterbacks, but do y'all think that it was handled properly?
No, I don't. I don't think that in Fort Worth it was handled, or in Texas it was handled properly.
Mhm.
I think we kind of kept trying to follow the leader, and we didn't have a leader, so we kind of just went by what the governor from the next state did, and made them look like real jackasses, you know. And during that time, we had people who are losing their lives in the middle of all that, and it's just like, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there, but the president supposedly knew that it was out and about. It was here, and he did absolutely nothing to stop it, and everyone just kind of followed his lead.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew how to handle it. Almost like they didn't want to believe it was there. You know, we know vaccines work. You know, they've helped with a lot of different diseases that we've come across. Will we ever inoculate this one? I don't think so. And I think I want for us to get back to normal, for us to remove our mask and to be able to be what we were before. But I don't think it's very scary. And then you hear people who are vaccinated, completely vaccinated, are still getting it. And just like Stephen said, we don't know what is the disease, what's it about? You know, how is it going to come back a year from now, 2 years from now? How's it going to attack our bodies again? You know, you can still get it. At first they said you couldn't get it anymore once you've had it. You built up the antibodies, and now people are still getting it once they've had it. Yeah. It's just a very scary situation. And I'm going to continue wearing my mask. I have other issues, health issues, and I'm just so scared to walk out there. And I see that other people are not. In Fort Worth, I know that they've removed the mask mandates, and pretty much stores here are leaving it up. They're leaving it up to themselves to decide if they're going to stay on or not, which I think is still a good thing, because you know, and then you have those that are hesitant to get vaccines. I think here in Fort Worth, or I think it was Fort Worth, less than half are even fully vaccinated. So, I mean, that's scary. Yeah. I mean, it's there. Why? I mean, everybody has a right to their own opinion on that and how they handle it, but you're putting other people at risk again. You know, it's just all over again. We're never going to reach the herd immunity that they were after. It's not going to happen.
Stephen?
I'm hopeful that we will reach the required herd immunity, but the question is, like, what percentage of immunity is required for herd immunity? Like, with this particular virus, we don't know. And viruses evolve over time, right? So, like, we're fighting a battle against evolution, which, you know, that's a tough nut to crack in that sense. And so, as far as your initial question, was the government's response in North Carolina handled like properly? I mean, I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback, because here's the thing: back in March and April, nobody knew anything, right? So, yeah, I have my disagreements with some of the things that Raleigh did, both the governor's office and the General Assembly, right? But at the same time, everyone was fumbling around in the dark. So what did they know, right? Now, we know more now than we did back then. And so you can criticize current policies, but, like, you know, as far as, you know, the whatever North Carolina did initially, you know, I honestly, my big criticism is that the Raleigh state, like the Raleigh government, both the executive branch and the legislative branch, should have done more to get tests to Americans. Because remember, back in April, tests were available, made by American companies, that the Europeans were using, that the FDA said that Americans couldn't use because they didn't make it. Like, wait. So it's good enough for the British and the Germans and the Italians, but it's not good enough for Americans. And one of the big failures of leadership in the United States was the fact that an organization like the FDA stood in the way of getting tests to the people in this country that needed it. And, you know, state governments had an obligation and a responsibility to do better, to get those needed resources. But, you know, they just outsourced their morale. They say, well, it's the feds, what can we do? And the real big stinger on that, in my opinion, is the fact that many of the people that made those decisions at the FDA still have their job. So you want to talk about social murder? The FDA and the people there I mean, they're just as responsible as Orange Man, right?
That's
Like he's
true.
out of office, but the people who are in control, the bureaucracy that made this stuff happen, the senators and congressmen and representatives in Congress that could have done something about it, they're all
That's true.
still there.
You're right.
Yeah, that's,
Like only the executive branch, really changed hands.
yeah.
In a substantial way. But like all the bureaucracies that made this situation worse, even at the state level, they're all still there.
Yeah. But I hear what you're saying, and one of the things that I know we've made a decision on the show to not talk about the former president as much because we kind of want to get him out of our system,
Right.
so to speak. But it's
talking about him is so much fun. The best.
That's right. Yeah, we don't have to talk about him. We got him on the show.
President ever.
That's right. But I just I was reading my journal. I've kept a journal since I was 17 years old.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and luckily, luckily due to word processing and computers, it's so easy now. Back in the day, you'd like write it down. Now I'm just like, today was a great day. Talk to you tomorrow. That's it. Or got drunk, or something. Anyway, and so I was reading my journal from back before we had like the lockdown, and we were going to we had a trip planned to Atlanta for our anniversary, which was like over St. Patrick's Day weekend, so to speak. And and I remember the Thursday before we left, I was at my sports bar, and I was watching I'm not sure what I was watching. I was watching something, but in my journal reminded me that I had a conversation with one of my neighbors whose daughter has some type of really bad medical condition, so to speak. And we were talking about masks and shutdowns and so forth. And I remember him telling me, please don't, I just hope people don't make this political. And which it just reminded me of what you said, Stephen. And I remember saying to him, I don't think Trump has that ability to not make it political. I mean, because I think we had just finished listening to him speak. And then he said, and he's a Republican, the person I was speaking to, and he said, I don't want the Democrats to make it political. And I told him, I said, I don't see how that's going to be possible when you have the president who forces it, everything is political with him. It's almost impossible for you just to ignore it when you're talking about something, because at that time, no one really knew what was going on. And I said, if this is a very serious issue, you can't just sit back and let people, catch this. And I remember that conversation, went to Atlanta, came back that Monday. They announced Mecklenburg County announced the stay-at-home order, I believe, so to speak. And then everyone else kind of followed suit. The governor, I think, did it after that. And so, and of course, the rest is history. We went for the rest of the history. I just don't know. I don't, as we look back, I just wish that the president at the time just had the ability to just shut up, kind of, I don't know. I mean, I think
I'll say this as someone who's outside of the normal right-left spectrum. So like I'm an outsider looking in. They're, Trump and the Republicans, they made it political, but this is something you may not be able to see because you're in it. The Democrats did the same thing. Like they quite literally did the same thing. Now you can justify it if you want, saying, oh, it's in response to whatever. But like, if you have something that ought not be political, one side is trying to politicize it, you can take the high road, right? What was it that Michelle Obama said? When they go low, we go high, right? It's not when you go low, we go lower. And, both, like no side is innocent. And it's a tough pill to swallow.
Sure.
If you are, a fan of the Democrats or just really hate the Republicans or whatever, both sides are absolutely complicit in, as Engel said, this social murder. And that's really unfortunate for the rest of us. Because listen, like three of us, we're here, we're having this conversation. Christian, Cyndi, me, like we all have vast disagreements on politics, policy, philosophy, religion. Like we're all really, really different. But yet we're we're not jerks to each other. We can acknowledge our differences and move on and like talk about things that matter or have difficult discussions while being respectful. I don't understand why the a-holes that we send to DC and our state capitals can't do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, you know, this is one of those episodes in America that's going to be like a whole class, you know, that they're going to be teaching and talking about this and so forth, because I agree with you, Stephen. I think many Democrats felt like they were responding to Trump's inability to handle the issue, and that was, so they justified, or we justified, because I was part of that as well. You know, it was, Cyndi, I think you probably want to say something. I go ahead.
I was just going to say, and who's to say how a Democrat leader would have handled it? We don't know.
Yeah.
But at the time, this is all we had to follow and to listen to be guided by, is what I'm saying. And it was major fail. And it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't just at the presidential level. It was state level. It was city level. It was, nobody knew what to do. And I understandably, I mean, when do we come against vaccine or diseases that wipe us out? You know, we haven't lived through that, you know, so I understand that. But at the same time, don't just ignore it, you know, and that's pretty much what he did, was just ignored it.
It is, and maybe, Stephen, I don't know, maybe I know you and I haven't really had this conversation in depth. We've talked about it on the show, but to me, it just feels different. I'm not as worried about it, maybe because I've been vaccinated and, you know,
Right.
But it just feels like from the leadership down, from the president down, it just feels different. It feels like, and I don't know, do you feel that way? I mean, I just feel safer now. Anybody?
Is that we've gotten used to it, maybe, or that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
My feelings on it haven't really changed. I mean, you know, the dead are still dead, right?
Yeah.
You know, hopefully, you know, something like this may happen in the future. I hope we can learn the lessons. Although because it became political, I'm not sure. Part of the reason, Christian, expand on this if you will. I'm legitimately curious, and maybe the audience is too. So I'm a guy, I don't really watch the news all that much. I'm very picky and choosy with my news. And I try to filter for partisanship as much as possible, which is, you know, easy, maybe a little easier for me, seeing as how I'm kind of outside that left-right spectrum. But, you know, I've seen that some of the news, as far as like, you know, the hair on fire rhetoric, has kind of mellowed down, you know, in terms of like, say, cable news or radio news or local newspapers and stuff. You know, now that, you know, a Democrat's in the White House, even though some of the policies actually haven't changed. Like, and that's for me, that's the most interesting thing. Like, you know, there were Bush policies that then just became Obama policies that then just became Trump policies that are now Biden policies. These policies haven't changed in like 20 years. But now no one's hair is on fire over it. And I think is it that you know, over the top kind of rhetoric is kind of dying down that makes you feel more comfortable, or am I just misreading the social media landscape?
Let's let Cyndi, you go first, and I'll respond.
I think that he fueled the fire and a lot of the issues, and that just made things worse. He was on TV every day, you know, giving his belief or his idea, his opinions on stuff that just made things worse. It wasn't any calm or peacefulness. It was just every day it was something different. Yeah,
I kind of agree with that too, Stephen. I didn't mind the silliness of Trump before the pandemic, because that was him. Okay. But once the pandemic started, it was just, this is not what we need. We need a serious, like in I was like, what we need, a serious person, someone who is going to get us through this crisis, so to speak. He didn't change. He kept, in my view, he just kept his, I call it kind of like a circus kind of clown act. And that was not, that didn't make people feel safe. It didn't make his own supporters feel safe. And it didn't make the people who didn't, it made it worse, the people who didn't support him. But I think what was really important, and this is kind of what I measure, you know, having spent past 30, almost 35 years in the hotel business, and then as a consultant, I look at the what people who work under someone say about that person, and almost everyone who's worked for Trump says he's an idiot. These are Republicans who say this. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. He just mouths off this. When you have that many people who used to work for you, and the only people who say you're great are your kids, but the people who actually work for you, something is wrong. I mean, you have to say this person doesn't know what they're doing, and so when we have individuals that are saying, he didn't know what he's doing. This was a complete mess. After he left office, they realized it was even worse than they thought it was, as far as the pipeline for vaccinations and so forth. And so I think we're realizing how bad it really was, because we were saying, oh, it's so for me, I feel safer because I don't hear that from people who work under our current president. Maybe we will in 6 months. Who knows? Maybe we'll have. But it wasn't 3 months into the former president's office when he fired his Secretary of State, and the person said he's an idiot, and it was like, and so for me, that confidence kept lower and lower and lower, and that's why I feel maybe safer now, is because it's just he was just I think he was just over. He was in way over what he could handle, and it was unfortunate. And it seemed like he didn't have the skill set or the ability to default to maybe experts that he wanted to be the expert, and that I don't know. That's just kind of the way I feel. But the reason I think that there isn't a lot of hair on fire reporting right now is because there's not a lot of hair on fire stuff to report. And so, whereas you couldn't go a day in 4 years, it seemed like, without Trump saying something just completely stupid, and you were like, oh my God. And then after a while, you were like, I can't handle this craziness. I mean, remember we had shows, we were talking about, this is just crazy, And so that's why I feel more comfortable. Do I think Biden wasn't my first choice, obviously, but at this moment, at this time, I think he's making people feel more comfortable. Like, at least we've got someone who's not going to do incredibly crazy things. So I don't know. That was a long-winded answer, but does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see how you might feel more comfortable with an establishment insider at the helm of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can understand that perspective. I mean, it's not one that I share, but I can understand it.
Yeah. But Stephen, I wouldn't have. For me, it's not really the fact that someone is established. It's just I just want someone who has the ability. We talk about this all the time in all of the professions that we're all in. You want someone during an emergency who remains calm. You don't want someone in an emergency that goes, oh my gosh, watch the door. That's why a lot of companies, and we've talked about this before, a lot of companies give management and managers the Myers and Briggs test or whatever forms of that, because they want to know how they're going to react in an emergency.
Calmness in the face of an emergency is the hallmark of good leadership.
Yeah, and like, for example,
want that.
I mean, and there are calm people who can't handle emergencies. I just happen to be such a warrior that when emergencies happen, I go into this mode where I go, all right, I tell the story all the time. We were on a boat in Lake Lanier when we lived in Atlanta. And we were on the boat. We were going to the cove where we hook up with a bunch of people. I opened the cabin and water was coming in. And I immediately said, honey, we've got water coming in. And we were approaching the cove, and Andrew was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, calm down. And quite honestly, it was more because I didn't want to sink in front of all the other boats. So I had to remain calm. And this was, they call this the gay cove in Atlanta, where all the big boats and everybody hook up and so forth. And I was like, I am not going to sink in front of all these queens. And so
You'll never hear the end of it.
Exactly. So I said, let's the bilge, the water, whatever that's called, was coming out the sides, pumping the water out. I said, let's go fast, get out of the cove and go beach it. And we beached it in some sand. And then, we were able to, so my mind was, this is what we got to do. That's just kind of how I react. And so anyway, so to the point where even
going into problem solving mode is a good thing.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's kind of what I had wanted with, I hoped that our former president would have had that ability to do that. And unfortunately, I mean, it's a democracy, so we can't give everyone who runs for office a test,
Right.
I mean, here, I mean,
you just choose not to.
Yeah, that's right.
Like in all seriousness, right? People in media, right, who cover campaigns could seriously question, candidates for certain things. They could ask, for example, we want a candidate for an executive position to take a Myers-Briggs test, right, and then make that information public. We could demand that, right, as a people, and then just choose not to vote for people who refuse that. Like we could do that, but we don't. Like, there's no rules to say that, as Americans, like say as North Carolinians, let's say, actually, I'll just say Americans, but I don't want to leave Cyndi out. As Americans, we don't want some kind of extra qualifications other than what the Constitution requires for presidency. And then that's where the so-called fourth estate comes into play. They've just been complicit, lazy, in my opinion. Good journalism is dead. It's one of the reasons why places like Substack are doing so well, where people can actually do good journalism but that's not necessarily the best model either, because then people get siloed, right, into their little thing, like their little track they like, and then maybe you don't have a diversity of ideas, again, churning around like you need to get good knowledge on certain topics. So it's a tough thing, man. It really is.
Well, I mean, we even had Democrats who I think fell asleep at the wheel or did not rise to the occasion. Here in the city of Charlotte, where I am, and you are, Stephen, our mayor literally disappeared. I mean, she had right when the stay-at-home order or the safer-at-home order started, about a week later, she had this big press conference down at City Hall. I don't know if you remember that. It was broadcasted, and she was bringing in all these big corporations from here that were going to donate money to help people who may have been laid off and so forth. And then we didn't hear from her for like 9 months until right before the election. And she wasn't out there telling people to wear masks or maybe even supporting, and I was looking like at mayors from other cities, and they were like, going to order takeout to support, small businesses. And they were encouraging people, to help, to do all these kind of things. She wasn't doing any of that. She wasn't, and all she had to do was go on Zoom, and so she literally disappeared, and she's a Democrat,
Yeah, and I'll say I like Vi as much as I like any other Democrat, except for you, Christian. You're the best always in my mind. That's why I voted for you, one of the few Democrats I'll ever vote for. Anyways, that being said, yeah, I mean, the mayor of Charlotte doesn't have a whole lot of power, but one of the big pieces of power that a position like that has is the ability to get in front of cameras and talk to the masses, right? And, as a politician, your job is to deliver speeches, essentially. And if you're really good at what you do, you can deliver these rousing speeches that motivate the masses, or at least enough people to do this or that or the other thing to make the community better, right? Or, steer through a situation, And I mean, I don't want to lay the failure squarely at the feet of Vi, because the city council itself is also divided, right? They didn't provide a unified front because they're too busy bickering with each other.
Yeah, I mean, we had maybe one or two of the city council members, specifically, I think Matt Newton rose up. He was on this show several times, and he was trying to help people with PPEs, loans, and stuff.
Yeah. He's one of those examples. And I say that as a guy who actually doesn't like Newton that much, but yeah, he did. He stepped up.
Yeah.
He was an example.
Yeah, and then we had, from a county commission, because here in in North Carolina, the county is in charge of health and human services, so to speak. And so I remember when we were telling people, where's Vi? Where's Vi? Some of her supporters were saying, well, the city doesn't have a lot to do with health. And no, but she's a human being. She can say, hey, wear masks, be careful, support your small businesses. She can still do those things. And, our Mecklenburg County chairperson, who I call now Queen George, who's George Dunlop, Queen George, he basically disappeared. And luckily we had other county commissioners who rose to the occasion, like Mark Drell, for an example, was out there always posting, here's where you can get tests, and so forth. He was, even to this day, every week he was trying to get people, tested and so forth. And
we'll see if those bad leaders pay a political price. Somehow, I don't think they will.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say, Stephen, is that I know we don't want to talk about the former president and also other people, but my fear is we're going to forget. We're going to forget those who abandoned us. And then as we get closer to elections, as we kind of get over this, they're going to, like, now you see Vi, the mayor, Mayor Lyles, I need to be respectful. Now you see Mayor Lyles, doing city council meetings and so forth, and she's wearing a mask and whatever, and people are going to forget she literally disappeared. You can go on social media, people were saying, where's Vi? We started the hashtag where's Vi, and she disappeared.
She's the one that came back with blonder hair.
Yes, that's right. Yes, no, look at her.
She pulls it off. It looks good.
So that's right. It's maybe we may forget those individuals, and I think it's up to us when we get closer to elections to hold them accountable. When we are at town hall meetings, let's remind them. I just want to remind you. I've said this all the time, Stephen. We have too many Democrats on the city council and our county commission here in North Carolina. In Mecklenburg County, we need Republicans, Libertarians, and Green people on those. On those, we need more diversity, and so
don't threaten you with a good time.
Yeah. So we just need more diversity. Just having an all Democratic county commission doesn't make it effective, and so anyway, I'm rambling now. All right, so we're going to kind of cut this off here, so we don't we do value everyone's time. I did want to say that Stephen, you brought this. I know you and I had kind of joked about it before, but there was a study done by a group, and I don't know if it was a university or someone, and they determined that here in the United States, there are 12 people, the same 12 people that are responsible for spreading conspiracies and on social media. And they have identified these 12 peoples. I guess it's like I don't know how they did it, but they were doing something, and they identified these 12 individuals, and apparently Facebook and Twitter, and so they know who these people are. They just can't keep up with them because they keep changing their name and the groups they start and so forth. So I guess that they have the ability to change their IP address, like you were saying, Stephen.
Easy to do. Like I can do it on my phone.
Yeah. So apparently a lot of these conspiracies that we have people have had to debunk have really been like 12. They're like anti-vaxxers in the conspiracy people, and so I just think that it's just amazing that it shows you how many times. And I have to, like, now when I see something, I have to be really careful, like, before I share it, because I want to make sure it's not like The Onion. The Onion's a fake. What's the Onion? It's like a satire.
The Onion and the Babylon Bee, my personal favorite.
Yeah, those aren't real. I've seen people share those before. And
sometimes they're as satire, they're so close to the mark, it's hard to tell. It's like, and I don't know if that's an indictment of how bad journalism has become. Or just how ridiculous certain situations are. But one point I should point out, Christian, is that conspiracy theorist is a censorship term. It's a term to censor people because conspiracies are real. There are some that are real. Like the Gulf of Tonkin was a conspiracy. The FBI had a conspiracy to make sure that Malcolm X's bodyguards weren't with him that day. You know, like these things are real and they do happen. That's why in law, you can actually be tried for conspiracy and go to jail because like it's a thing that actually happens. So when people say, "Oh, they're just a conspiracy theorist," ask why are they saying that? Like what are the specific things the conspiracy theorist is saying? Sometimes what they say doesn't matter. It's like, oh, it's just, you know, it's just bupkis. It's as Uncle Joe would say, it's malarkey, right? It's like, come on, man, it's malarkey. But sometimes, you know, someone will say something that'll just hit on a grain of truth and go, ooh, that's actually worth talking about. And some people in power may not want to have that conversation for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for whether it's like money or access or whatever, or like, hey, we don't want to, you know, impugn the royal family because we want to get them on our interview shows. So we're going to call this person calling out, you know, Prince Andrew, a conspiracy theorist or whatever. Like, you know, there's an old Latin saying, cui bono, who benefits? So, you know, always take some of these labels with just a little bit of skepticism because, you know, sometimes, you know, they're not actually how they're being presented.
Yeah. I mean, and they do start from somewhere, something they've come about from. It's just like they don't come up with rules and dumb rules for reasons, you know. It's happened before. I don't know. I tend to listen to conspiracies, and in my psych class we learned that it's part of having a mental issue if you believe in a lot of conspiracy theories. But I thought, oh my gosh, I have mental issues. I'm not going to tell them this, because there are some that you do, you know, do have some truth behind it, or you know, from the past. I mean, they've been around forever. So, I mean, they didn't just come born yesterday, you know, there's a reason they're there. I'm not saying they're all true.
No, I agree. I think people like, what's the guy that does, the crazy guy from Texas that does.
Don't say his name. Don't say his name on the thing. Like, that's one of the names you're not allowed to say.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there's a crazy person in Texas that spreads all these.
Which just gets to, it just gets to the censorship thing. We can't honestly discuss something important because of platform censorship. Like,
well, I think they ruined it. Well, what I'm saying is that they've ruined it for everyone, because now
that guy's one of my favorite comedians.
Oh,
he is a clown.
Well, I can tell. I can tell you that I'll admit I tried to see if a magnet stuck to my shot, and it didn't. So I just.
Oh,
I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but
stay off the internet.
Yes, no, it was debunked on the NBC station. They did a verify that anytime that you have something on social media or someone spreading something, they'll actually like fact check it. And it was one of the things, and I was like, I mean, I tried. I was like, maybe, I mean, I knew it was just silly, but I was like, I admit, even those of us who knock it, we may have tried it. So with that said, I think it's probably time for us to close our show today. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go around the Brady Bunch screen, which is really small today. Stephen and Cyndi, tell us where you're going to be until next week. Next week on our regular show, we are talking about what is restorative justice. It's a movement around the country, restorative justice. Here in Mecklenburg County, they actually have a resolution that I believe they're going to be voting on, or it's in anyway, we're going to explain to people kind of what that is. I think it's under a different name now here in Mecklenburg County. Hopefully we'll have Commissioner Mark Drell, if he can find some time, or someone from the Greenspawn Center who also is trying to get this passed here in Mecklenburg County. But that's our next week's Wednesday show. So Stephen and then Cyndi, where are you going to be?
I'm going to be just, living my life, working. I'm going to have a lot of reading to do, actually. And it's getting to be close to convention season for the LP. So we're having our state convention in June for the Juneteenth weekend. And Juneteenth is going to be our theme, because I don't know about you, but it's kind of like America's second Independence Day. And I'm a big fan of that holiday. And so I got a lot of prep work to do, because, you got to know your stuff when you're around a bunch of libertarians, I guess. But also, you know, there's a lot of cool things that we're going to be doing at the local level for the party, starting up clubs, organizations, things like that to try to help make our communities better. And so, yeah, part of that is improving yourself, and reading a good book or two a week is a way to start doing that.
Cyndi?
Well, speaking of Juneteenth, I've had a couple of small organizations who have ordered my bundt cake. So I'm staying really busy. And as they're gathering to discuss the holiday, they're, I don't know, for some reason they love these bundt cakes. So that's great, you know. But other than that, I'm just trying to keep this heat. We've been having a lot of storms here, bad thunderstorms, a lot of hail, and the heat just doesn't help. And it's crazy, you know. I love the springtime because of the flowers and the grass and the birds, but geez, it's so scary for us here.
Yeah, we may be in the middle of a drought here in North Carolina, and I'm going crazy because it's the first year my grass actually looks almost perfect. And I'm only allowed to water it once a week because of how high the water bill is, because it usually rains once a week. So now I may have to, I don't know how, I may have to just give up the back grass and just let the front, anyway. It's going to be very, really big challenging. So I do want to thank you. And just as a little history lesson, those of us who are from Texas, who we usually have a lot of Texans here, are very familiar with Juneteenth because that actually occurred in Texas.
Yes, it did.
That's right. And it's very highly celebrated in Texas, Juneteenth.
Oh my God. We have parades and all kinds of gatherings.
That's right. That was the day that the slaves in South Texas received notice that they were free,
right.
that they didn't tell them. And the ship came into the Gulf of Mexico, I believe. I don't know if it was Galveston. It was somewhere in the region, and they told them. And I think it was, I don't know how, it was months and months that they really were free, and they were still working, and they were told. So you're right. It was like the second Independence Day. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us. We value your time. You can watch this show later on YouTube when we drop it on YouTube, and also you can always watch it on Facebook Live. So we want to thank you so much. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Cyndi. I'm going camping this weekend in the mountains, and then camping season starts. Yay! Well, it's already started. So, all right, y'all. And I'm trying to work out as much as I can because summer starts and I saw a neighbor. I was watering the grass today. I saw a neighbor walking, and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "I'm trying to get in like summer shape." I said, "You got like 3 weeks." Everyone like hits the gym and stuff, but like 3 weeks before they're supposed to.
Oh my God!
I told him. I said, I'll wear a one piece. I'm not shy. I will just.
Chris.
All right.
I know you're going to be playing the music and dancing in your little one piece.
Yeah, that's right. So stay on if you're on Zoom, but we're going to end the Facebook Live show. Bye, y'all.
Bye.